Charles, what's up? Another Friday, but not the normal Friday.
No, sir. This is not normal.
I we'll start it off this way. I think I started off the week with the bang, and you're finishing it. A lot of people might not know, so I'm in Dallas most of the time, and Charles is in Mississippi most of the time. And since the pandemic, we have not been traveling back and forth like we normally do. So usually I'm in Jackson every other month. He's in Dallas every other month. But we've been staying put and following social distancing and all the protocols during the pandemic. But let me just tell you that this has been a week. This has been a week. I am definitely grateful, and it's a week that has shown me that it's the little things that really matter that we take for granted sometimes. And so, me for one, I'll just start by saying that I always figured if I could pay my bill, I would have heat and power.
No guarantee, my brother.
No guarantee. No guarantee.
Especially not in Texas.
Especially not in Texas. Thank you for all the people that reached out. A lot of our family and friends of the show reached out, checking on me. I appreciate it. My heart is filled. Thank you. We're okay. We have power now. We went a couple days without power. We were fortunate that we were able to relocate to a relative's house that had power. But I got to tell you, and that was tough because my wife did not want to leave, but we had to make a quick decision very quickly because in the midst of that, I'm looking at 5.5 inches of snow in my backyard, and it's at the time when we made that decision, I think it was 2 degrees. So, look, I've never seen anything like that before. That was a first for me.
Well, how about this? When people in Washington, D.C. start talking about global warming and people out in the states and the cities and hamlets and even smaller towns say, oh, it's a hoax. This is what global warming looks like.
Yes. This is it. That was a show back in the 90s or late 80s. It was In Living Color. This is definitely in living color.
Yeah. You're dealing with coal. You're dealing with pipe issues and all of that. So are we. Everything that you got, we got.
And I wasn't. Trust me, I was hoping that wasn't the case. And then I'm realizing it didn't stop there. It's going all the way up the East Coast. So
yeah, it's still going. And we are without water, worried about whether or not these pipes are going to burst, spotty electricity, roads. We don't have enough equipment for this type of weather because this is not normal Mississippi weather. I mean, so that's something all in and of itself. I mean, it's quite a bit to take in. I'm just glad we could actually get on the show and do it because power's been going in and out.
Listen, I mean, I spent most of the week in the dark with no power, and my wife and my kid always laugh at me because I'm always charging my phones. Like on a normal day, I'm always charging and I always have full charge. They quickly found out just how beneficial that is over the last.
Well, yeah, because I mean, when you're operating in the dark, our lives are so intertwined with email and text messages and phone calls. Everything is inside of the handheld computer called a phone now. And so um, you need those devices to have a lifeline to the outside world.
Look, I don't know if you guys have dealt with this. The other thing we dealt with was because power was out, because the internet was gone, everybody was on their phones, and so then the phone started to fail. So here, AT&T, I mean, literally, you couldn't get a call out. You had to try several times to get a call to go through. That was happening. The internet, as far as broadband, was just crawling because that's all people had. So everybody, so you imagine everybody begins using that as a single source. So it was just frustration all the way around. But I was very grateful, um, and I just continue to pray for the ones that still don't have power as of this moment, even here.
Yeah, speaking of which, pull up that article I sent you so we can talk about this because even though Mississippi got hit, Texas is in a class of its own for its own reasons. And so I wanted to make sure we debunk any myths, any misrepresentation, any outright lies. Uh, I've heard former Governor Rick Perry say that, you know, this was brought on because of the use of wind technology to generate uh, wind renewable energy, which is just not the case. So I wanted to make sure we scroll down a little bit. I want to show you something on here because I know I sent it to you at the last minute, but I want to show you this visual. Keep going.
Okay.
You'll see right here, 2020 energy use in Texas. This is the energy output that keeps your lights on, keeps you uh, warm and cozy in the wintertime and nice and breezy in the summertime. 45%.
I'm sorry.
Natural gas. You see this?
I do. So you're telling me I mean, 45 and a half, almost 50% natural gas.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is the first time in Texas that wind actually passed coal. So as we can see, there's a mix of things going on with the energy use. Here's where the problems come in, Liz. Uh, Texas being Texas, second largest state in the union, you decided to take yourself off of the national grid. And so not only did you take yourself off of the national grid, back in 2011, I believe you had a hard freeze. And based off of that, there was after action reports done. And from those reports, they let you know exactly what was going to happen if cold weather came again, because your grid was not prepared, nor were the steps taken to winterize your natural gas facilities. And then you add in ice, rain, snow, and wind, and everything just started a domino, cascading effect of failure. So when you hear people saying that, oh, it's because they're using this new technology of wind and solar, you can say no. I've seen it with my own eyes. Most of the production of energy for energy consumption in Texas was natural gas.
Listen, and I gotta tell you, until this happened, and I will probably say at least most of the people that I know, I didn't even realize Texas was not on the national grid. I did not even know Texas was standalone. Um, so that means we can't even if Mississippi wanted to send us electricity or Georgia's wanted to send us, they can't because we're not even on the national grid.
Well, that's not entirely true. What happens is if you see over to the side, you'll see 10.9% nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
So there are nuclear facilities spread out close enough to you that could have assisted you. But we all have bad weather, so that caused a cascading effect.
Gotcha.
And then by the actions of the government removing yourself so far off the grid, it's hard for the federal government to assist you. Now, President Biden has sent in generators and any, water and other things that can be helpful in the short term. But this is something that's going to have to be uh, demanded by the voters to be changed because You can't exist. So here's a political point. They're always talking about seceding from the union.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a prime example of why that's a terrible idea.
Right.
Because now you are officially functioning as your own power grid, and you failed.
Well, and I think it goes back to this. We've heard a lot about ERCOT. ERCOT is the agency that manages the power grid in the state of Texas. And here, look, you know how I am. This whole blame game. I just remember as soon as it broke, the first time I see the governor, he comes on the news and he literally blames everybody but himself and takes no accountability. When, like you said, in 2000, I think it was 11, had that freeze, they were informed then to weatherize and winterize all of those plants, and they did it. So when you have 10% of your plants that fail you, and you're talking about 1 megawatt of energy fuels and heats and cools average of 200 homes, and now you are down 10%. So we essentially lost, I think they said like 50 at one point, 50 something thousand megawatts.
Yes.
Of energy went offline. You know what that translates into? Millions.
Oh yeah, but before you get off into the blame game, Leslie, it's bigger than that, because Texas has what's called a railroad commission, and up until recently, I'm always into politics, and I came across it in this last Senate race, and I'm like, okay, Democrats have a chance to get some seats on there. Would you know that the Railroad Commission really has nothing to do with the railroads? It's about energy and making sure the providers are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And so because Texas is operating essentially its own power grid, you're trying to buy your energy materials at the cheapest cost. And when you're doing that, you're not putting any regulations on the providers to make sure that the supply chain won't break. And so now you are in a situation where it's broken in front of the world.
Because you're your own grid, so you create your own policies and guidelines, and there you have it.
Yeah, and I heard the judge from Dallas talking, and he said, it's perfectly
the Dallas County. Are you referring to the Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins?
Clay Jenkins,
yeah,
one and the same. He said not only is it to be expected, they were warned and they chose to take this path.
That's true.
Now this becomes a question that should be answered by voters.
Well, I can tell you this. I think this answer will be a resounding answer by voters, because here we go again. This did not discriminate. Look, we were all cold. I'm just going
no, not everybody.
Not everybody, but a lot of people were cold.
Because the junior senator from Texas, Mr. Cruz, he was nice and warm. Look, he's got to be somebody that fights so hard against immigration reform. He crossed the border for warmth.
Wait a minute. That's interesting, right? Because when they revealed, I forget what paper, because I want to give the right paper credit, and I just don't remember what paper.
CNN was the first to break the story.
Okay. And then somebody got a hold to his wife's text messages.
Yes, sir.
Because originally, when they caught him at the airport, and the press caught him at the airport, and he was trying to hide, trying to be incognito, right? But they caught him, and his initial response was that his daughter had some friends that were going to Cancun, and he had promised them that he would let them go on a trip. And so he was taking them over there, and then he was coming, and he was going to turn around and come back. Okay. All right. Sketchy, but okay. Benefit of the doubt. Then when the text messages are released, it's a whole different story. We find out that not only did you go, but your family planned the whole thing.
Leslie, so no benefit of the doubt to him at all for this particular reason. I don't care if his neighborhood had power the whole time. I don't care if his neighborhood didn't have power the whole time. He is the junior senator from the second largest state in the union that is in the middle of a humanitarian crisis, and you decide to go ahead, I don't care when the trip was planned, but at the point that you saw your constituents suffering, you cancel that trip.
Right.
That's a common sense approach. That's not red, that's not blue, that's not purple. That's
Right.
common sense. I'm pretty sure your mother said the same thing that mine did. You can have book sense, but you need some common sense, some walking around sense.
You know what? You know you're right, and I think we talk about it all the time. The color of humanity, it's neutral.
Yeah.
Humanity is that, and so it was interesting, Johnson. Then ironically, you know, if you think back a few years, last year, just you don't even have to go far. If we just think back to last year when California had the outage, these same officials, we talking about the Secretary of State of Texas, Paxton. We talking about the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick of Texas. We talking about the one and only Ted Cruz himself, that junior senator you're referring to. They got on social media and just clown Gavin Newsom in California and say, hey, this is what the Democratic run utility and power system looks like. This is what the Green New Deal will do for you. This is what it is like when you're part of the federal. I mean, I was just like, of course, they've released them all now. And so when they asked Ted Cruz about it, this is the first genuine response I've seen from him lately. And he's just like, what can I say?
It's cold. Look, it's a cold world. This will stay with him just like that tank incident stayed with Michael Dukakis.
Yep.
The only difference is the Michael Dukakis kerfuffle was manufactured. This was fumbling in your own end zone and handing it to the other team and saying score a touchdown.
This was the worst situation because this is happening in your home, not just your home state, in your home city.
Yes.
It's not like you're in DC and this is happening at home and you're not there. No. You are home. You don't have power. It's cold for you. You leave. Okay. So
to the Ritz-Carlton, no less.
At $309 a night, and that was a deal, by the way.
Wouldn't that be nice for the people who are suffering and dying from hypothermia, having to evacuate their homes in the middle of a pandemic and coming back to pipes burst, ice hanging from the ceiling? But yeah, you cozied up in the Ritz-Carlton. That is just an abject failure of responsibility. As a former elected official, I look at that and I say, you know, one, voters have a chance to right this wrong, but two, right. he whatever happens, he did it to himself.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, he did it to himself, you know. So how are you guys doing in Jackson right now? You know, I know in Texas, this is our first day above freezing. First day the temperatures have gotten above 34 degrees. So we're excited about that. And so stuff is starting to melt and we'll be able to kind of get out and get back to well, now we'll be able to make it to the grocery store. The problem is we still don't have anything in them.
Right, because the supply chain is broken.
Right.
So it's a cascading effect. It is now 30 degrees in Jackson. The high today was 34. For most of the day, it's been around 28, but we had sunshine for a change today. So that improved the driving conditions. But with it being 30 again this evening, we're going to still experiencing a lot of frozen pipes, a lot of burst pipes. Jackson's infrastructure is old to begin with. And so this is putting a strain on the entire city because we're on a boil water notice, but we don't have any water to boil.
Oh. So talk to me about that and the water situation. I'm familiar with what's going on here in Texas, but what exactly happened with the water system in Jackson?
It failed. The pipes are old. So what happens when you have old uninsulated pipes?
No.
So now we all wait to see how much damage we're going to have when they start unthawing.
Yeah, because you don't know until then. Well, you're right. The real price tag, you don't even know what it is yet.
Yeah, and so for those people who act the fool and clown on the bad information that there is no such thing as climate change, this is what it looks like, and this is what climate change looks like when you have terrible organization and planning.
You know, I will tell you that in the midst of this, being able to, um, I'm gonna go back to. Let me change thoughts. I'm gonna go back to something that we were taught coming up in a small town, and I know a lot of people that were taught this could relate. This was a time you wanted to know your neighbors, and you wanted your neighbors to know you. I can say for here in our community, we checked on each other. Um, we talked to each other. We communicated throughout. The only way we found out power was here. Our neighbors let us know. Let us know if it was stable, how long it had been on before we, made the journey back. You can't forget the basics. So I know a lot of us, live in communities. Look, we've left a small town now. We're big time. We live in communities. We work hard to get there, but we don't even know our neighbors. Never talk to them. Don't know them.
Yeah, but this is bigger than just knowing your neighbors.
It's bigger than that. But what I'm saying at the grassroots level, this is much bigger than that. But what I'm saying, when everything else fails, sometimes all you got is your neighbor.
True.
And that's the situation we find ourselves in this time. I mean, you got more blankets, you got more that type of thing. Because guess what? All the big policy changes, those are things we can address once this is behind us, when we go to the polls. But in the heat of the moment, yeah.
So you best hope that you do know your neighbor. Yep. Or if you don't, you better run down there and introduce yourself.
Real quick, Charles.
Yeah.
So what I just thought about something, this is you mentioned that I know Jackson's infrastructure is older, and you said uninsulated pipes, but isn't there, and this is just because I don't know, but isn't there a mandate or a regulation that all pipes are insulated for the winter? Is that, or am I just dreaming it?
I'm telling you what is. I'm telling you that low water pressure coupled with single digit temperatures has caused the water system to fail.
Good. What are they telling you as far as when the water will be back online?
Well, yesterday the mayor had a press conference and he said that he basically said he didn't know. He used some big words to say it, but he didn't know. Jackson has all sorts of problems. We shouldn't let communication be one of them.
I agree. I'll put this picture up, Charles. I don't know what it's like in Jackson, but here's what we're facing. And family, guys, let us know, for those of you that's in other areas that are affected. I know we got viewers from all over. Hit us in the comments. Let us know what's going on there. Somebody just sent me this, but this is what why I didn't even venture out to the grocery store today. This is what they look like.
Oh, no doubt. It was a mad scramble trying to find water, and they just started putting up where you would have some potable water. People are being crafty. You use what you have. There's ice on the ground, so you boil it if you need to flush toilets.
Yeah. I would say this. You can be hot and find ways to cool yourself off. I have found that when you are cold,
whole different ballgame.
It is a much more difficult challenge.
Yes, because the body needs a certain regulated temperature in order to function as a normal body. So you can upregulate, but it's hard when it's trying to upregulate from cold, son.
Yeah, but then you got other issues too. I think about the people who have, they need oxygen, so that's plugged into a source. You have
That's right.
people that need insulin,
Dialysis.
dialysis, all of that, that nobody's talking about. So when there's a family down on the border in McAllen that had uh, kids with diabetes that needed insulin. Well, they had the insulin, but because they've been without so power so long, insulin has to be refrigerated. Then they've lost it.
Yeah.
So that type of thing. And then we just got a comment from Michael Brown that said no water or lights right now in South Jackson.
Yeah, he's absolutely correct. It's a mess.
You know what? I will say I did get one laugh. I looked at my wife. I said, I talked about Charles. I talked about Charles and that spam a whole lot.
You need spam in your life when you don't have much else. Look,
I said, but you know what? Push come to go. I said, hey, push come to shove, but spam will be pretty tasty right about now.
That's right.
But now we're fortunate. I mean, we still for us it's been our opportunity just to really you might, as my wife put it, you might not have what you want, but you have something.
Yeah. We have any comments or questions from our audience?
No, pretty quiet today. I guess look, people without power, people are cold, so I get it, but not that many. Got mom is in the house checking us out today. Oh, okay. And then, well, you answered Andrea's question. A good question. Explain the Texas energy grid for those who have questions.
Okay, the one thing that I left off, Andrea, is this. At one point in time, Texas was plugged into the Western grid, which goes all the way down to Baja, Mexico. But for some bright idea of a reason, Texas wants to function as a republic, and they decided, in their infinite wisdom, to unplug and create the Texas grid. And so they basically have walled themselves off from everybody else, which causes problems like this, because you can have failures in the power grid, but what if it's a functioning grid that's connected, then you relay power from somewhere else to bridge the gap. That can't happen with Texas right now, because not only is the grid essentially unplugged from everybody else, they didn't do the winterizing that they needed to do around the old natural gas facilities,
Right.
Which then caused the electric facilities to overheat because they were trying to warm up the transformers. So you have a domino effect of not being plugged in, not winterizing, and then overheating, which blew out the transformer.
You know what? Monique says it best. I'm gonna put this coming up.
Yep, that's why you're suffering, because your elected officials decided that they wanted to play politics with your lives. It's cool in the summertime to play politics. It's not so cool now in the winter.
Bird says, he puts it in a great form. He says, isn't Texas talking about succession, but asking the government for help?
Well, they were talking about it, but if this is any indication of how it's going to go, well, they're not going to function well as a country.
Charles, I'll tell you a funny moment. My wife shared this with me. It was this is the first. So it was when we got to laugh about it. She's like, we have a couple cups in our house that are temperature changing cups, so they change as the temperature changes.
Yeah,
but never have we ever seen those cups change in the house. Like they change if you pour cold water in it because the temperature with ice and things of that nature. Wasn't nothing in the cup. Cup sitting in the shelf in the cabinet. Yeah. Cup is changing colors.
Oh yeah. So it's that cold. Is that cold?
Yeah. So I think it's going to be a very interesting election season. in the next cycle. I think it's been, look, we have dropped the ball in terms of the pandemic in Texas, and I'm just speaking of Texas here. We've dropped the ball in terms of protecting people and weatherizing the heating sources and the power. And here's the thing, Chuck. This is not something we didn't know was coming. I mean,
you had 9 years notice,
right? So we were warned before. We had notice and we had time. So this is just, to me, this is just negligence. It's like, I'm not gonna do it. Like a
this
little
is
kid.
gross negligence. This started under Rick Perry, and it has gone on to Abbott. And in the meantime, you have them changing the names of different policy making organizations, i.e., the Railroad Commission, which has nothing to do with railroads. Things like this to keep and maintain power.
Charles, we got a good question here from Michael. I'll let you take that one.
Uh, 1099 business. I have not applied for any off. I don't understand the question.
Michael, I think what he's saying, and Mike, please hit us back in if we got this wrong. But I think what he's saying is that as he has a business and he hasn't applied for any of the funding or programs for small businesses in terms of relief, and he said that he wanted to make sure everything lined up, that he was doing the right thing and everything was legit, and he wanted to know if we service that, if we could help him with that, if we did that kind of work. Now, Mike, okay, he said, been on my day job for 13 years and 1099 for 5 years. So he's had a business 1099 for 5 years. Michael, tell me, that business you have 1099, is it that just you are a consultant, you're an independent contractor? We would have to know a little bit more about it, but we do that type of work in terms of helping you and navigating you through it. So I would say reach out to, I'm going to definitely give me a call and let's talk about it. My direct line, and I'm going to put it right in here. Michael is 972. I'll just put it in the comments for you. So you can just give me a call and we can talk about it and go through everything and make sure you are, and I can explain everything to you and see if you qualify and if it's a good thing for you to do. So be happy to talk to you about it. And what I would say to that, guys, look, if you qualify for any of the relief as a business, take it. Take it, because there's no doubt about it. You're gonna need it, and sometimes you need it when you don't know you're gonna need it, because these are unprecedented times. I mean, at the time, I can just speak, personally. At the time of the pandemic, we didn't know how long this was gonna last. And if you would have told any business or any of us that it would be a year and we would still be dealing with this, I'm sure a lot more people would have applied. So,
yeah. I mean, one thing about government is that it's okay to rag on government in good times, but you need government. You need government for things as mundane as trash collection. If the trash collection is not going right, the people in the community on the street are going to have a problem, right?
Look, man, you see, here's the thing, Charles. You're right. To answer your question, you're right. And when something like this happens, all those things stop, and you start, like you said, what the word or the term you use? You said it's some type of an effect.
Cascading.
Yeah, it's cascading effect, and that's what we're seeing. I just went out today just peeking, hoping that the trash man was coming. He's not coming. So, so all that stuff is backed up, which causes more problems, other problems. And so you're right.
I mean, and honestly, Leslie, I would like to think that this would be a moment for putting politics to the side, and people realizing that there is so much more that could be done in these communities. But if this pandemic has taught us nothing else, we may need wholesale changes.
Well, it may be, but I think more than anything, what I hope is taught all of us is that we need to be very much involved in what's happening in our government, in our rules and regulations, and what's happening, things that we normally wouldn't think about. I can own that because I myself have not even taken 1 millisecond to think about power legislation, energy legislation going on in Texas, going on in Mississippi, and I should have. I should have known what was going on. I should have, and so we have some accountability to it too. But I think now we should all be more laser focused on what's going on around us.
Yes, and this is part of the wholesale change that I'm talking about. I'm not just talking about politicians, because politicians are people, and they will go to Cancun on you at the first chance that they get. So you have to be accountable to yourselves and your neighbors, because this is the essence of grassroots community government. Because I mean, it's incumbent upon us as individuals to take part in the politics of your community, because when you hear the saying, which I've told you for many years, and having been an OG to small town politics, all politics is local, because these are not things that necessarily come up and are sitting on the forefront of the agenda. But if you participate in your government, then you understand that, hey, these things do come across in meetings at least once a year. And if you're involved, then when it's brought up that one time, that's your time to hold them accountable to say, did you weatherize?
Without a doubt, I will going forward. I can tell you that, and it just shows you how. And you have said that. You've always said all politics are local and starts local. That's never been more true than today. Never been more true than today. So got another question here. Let me go pull in some comments.
Accountability and being involved. And for those people that are saying that I don't have a skill set for politics, yes, you do. You have 2 eyes that you can see with, you have 2 ears that you can hear with, and you have a brain that you can think with. Open your mouth and let all those things process at the same time. In the beginning, do a whole lot more listening than talking. And somebody needs to take it upon themselves to put civics back in these high school curriculums, because I've said this once, I said it twice. You do not go to Cancun when your people are freezing.
I thought you go stay at the Ritz. You get a really great deal, $309 a night. That's just what we do.
Yeah, if you're not gonna take your whole constituency, you can't go.
Right. I mean, I can't. That thought would never even cross my mind. I mean, to do that. That would have been as bad as when I called you and told you the situation we were in, and you were telling me, well, hey man, I'm about to get on a plane and go to Florida. I'm about to go wherever, and I'm gonna feel a different kind of way if we're having that conversation. So I think, and to be an elected official, yes, you held to a higher standard, and you know it was wrong. And I think also back to the issue about people thinking, politics are overwhelming. Look, at the end of the day, it's just rules. Laws are rules and guidelines, the way things are supposed to happen. If you go and there's something you don't understand, ask the question or ask somebody. You have a right to do that. And don't let anybody make you feel like you're less than for asking a question, or less than for not knowing something. Listen, you know more than you think you know. And half of that stuff is just written in such a way that it sounds like it's a thesis when it's really nothing but a sentence?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think I think one of the biggest con jobs is that elections don't have consequences, and that the elected officials can get by off of uh, basically telling their constituents that they know more, so let them handle it. No, because this is how things like this happen. People start getting you into culture wars and ideologies, and they get you away from the fact that you pay taxes so that you have clean water, good schools, and heat. you know, simple things like working streets, working pipes, working electricity grids. This is what you pay taxes for. And so when you are not involved because you have signed off on a culture war that says something about abortion, something about judges, something about another person not looking like you or thinking like you, so they're not welcome in your community, guess what? You have missed the boat on what politics is really all about. In order to perfect a more perfect union,
Let's go.
that requires everyone, and it has nothing to do with you know.
Monique has a question for us, Charles. Monique, I'm not sure. I hadn't heard about this. Which mayor are you referring to?
Yeah, which mayor? I'm not familiar with a mayor resigning, but I'll look it up right quick if you give me a name. What's the name, Monique?
I think I found it, Monique. I think it's Texas mayor actually. Mayor of Colorado City, Tim Boyd. Tim Boyd, Boyd, wrote an insensitive message for people desperate for heat and water and power, saying, and I quote, "Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish. No one owes you or your family, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during times like this," he said. "Sink or swim is your choice."
I'm familiar with that. I did not realize he had resigned, but I'm familiar with him saying that, which in part kind of led me down this diatribe because elected officials have been collecting their checks off the back of those votes that they got from their citizens, but they haven't been carrying the water that people need. I give you something. This is something that I've been thinking about, Liz. You familiar with Katrina? We both lived in New Orleans, and you familiar with the governmental response from the federal level, state level, and the local level. Um, the levees were a federal issue. Um, had Texas power grids been connected the way they were supposed to be, guess what? It would require a federal response. People often don't know or don't realize the power that they're giving these individuals to make these dumb decisions. Because now, guess what? You don't have the federal government and all of its might to back you up. They can declare an emergency, but there are so many different things that they could have done to get the power grid sorted out so people wouldn't still be suffering. And for that mayor to say, only the strong survive and it's not the government's responsibility to help in times of need, then why is he in office? He deserves to not be in office because it's government of the people, for the people, and by the people. And it doesn't say anything in that statement about good times only. It says for, for, and by.
Yeah, I mean, here's his exact comments here, and I'll blow it up. There it is. No one owes you or your family anything, nor is it the local government's responsibility to support you during trying times like this. Sink or swim is your choice, he wrote. The city and county, along with power providers or any other service, owes you nothing in all
Mhm.
capitals. And
Slow
he
down
went
now.
on.
He kept going though.
Yeah. Then he said, but wait. Then he said, if you don't have electricity, you step up and come up with a game plan to keep your family warm and safe. He continued, if you have no water, you deal without and think outside, you deal without and think outside of the box to survive and supply water to your family. Only the strong will survive and the weak will perish.
He sounds like someone who watches a lot of zombie apocalypse. That's TV. This is real life. And if you're going to sit in the seat of power, then you are responsible for your citizens. It's just that
Yeah,
simple.
it's a new phenomenon going around where people this run for office to be representative of the people and do for the people. Because I think people have forgotten to run for public office that job is called a public service job. It's
Right.
supposed to be of service.
Right.
So I guess he lost that in the concept because why would you run for mayor if you have no desire to support the people that you're supposed to be supporting? That's the
Well, I'm answering that for you. We have gotten into all of these people that are playing politics and taking legitimate things and boiling them down to sound bites. Like I heard one of the people who was against impeaching President Trump talking about council culture. Council culture is a real thing and not the topic for today's discussion. But he just took the words council culture and applied them inappropriately to Mr. Trump.
yeah.
That's playing politics. See, when people are cold and hungry and they don't have any water or lights, and then we find out that you unplugged them from the power grid, essentially, and it's more complex than that. But if you boil it down without all of the fancy language, essentially you are unplugged. You don't want to play nice with others.
Pretty much. Don't want to play nice in the sandbox.
But now your people need power and they need water. Well, the power issue could have been taken care of. Had you been plugged up, then you could have gotten some power from California. But you don't want to be plugged into California because California is blue and it's liberal and it's hippies and it's all of these sound bites. That's playing politics.
Well, we got one other question that came up, and that was why are so many politicians bringing up the Green New Deal in relation to this crisis that just happened? Could you explain the correlation?
In what manner are they bringing it up? Because
So,
context
for
is everything.
example, Governor Abbott said, "Hey, this is why the Green New Deal would not be good for the country. This is why." You see what happened with this weather crisis.
Right. So go back, put that article back up and read the title, and that will answer the question. Abbott is full of, I'm not gonna say it, but he's full of it. Because what he's trying to say is that the Green New Deal is cost prohibitive and it's going after to fight uh, global warming, which is not a thing. So even in the fact that he's been irresponsible and negligent, he's trying to play politics with the Green New Deal. Now, you see this title, misleading narratives. That is what you call, that is the definition of misleading narrative, because the Green New Deal would provide jobs, clean energy, and efficient energy. Scroll down, and you will see that Texas is suffering not because of green energy. Natural gas is not up to par. And it's not because of the Green New Deal. It's because of gross negligence from Abbott, from Cruz, and everybody else that's responsible for making decisions there in Texas, all the way back to Rick Perry, because they decided they knew how to handle energy in Texas better than anybody else. But they didn't follow the recommendation of experts.
You know what that reminds me of? That's like the people that always they want to hire an expert, but they want to tell the expert what to do.
Exactly. So they didn't hire these experts. First of all, the experts came in because they failed in 2011 in the last frozen weather issue that Texas experienced.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. If I'm thinking back correctly, and Charles, you have to correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't that the year? And it was just a little earlier than the frame now by a couple weeks. But wasn't that the year when the Super Bowl was in Dallas? The first year they was in that stadium and had all the ice and mishaps and problems.
That's correct.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Because it was in national spotlight, there was an after-action report provided to all of the energy agencies. You mentioned ERCOT and others, and you know that went to the governor's desk. And it had measures on there that would probably fit well within the Green New Deal. Weatherization is a big part of the Green New Deal because it provides good, clean jobs.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't do that. And now here he is trying to single out the Green New Deal as a no-no because of what happened here. That's saying, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm. Hey, family, any other questions? Charles is breaking it down in terms of the political landscape and just really kind of breaking the myths from facts and all the misinformation that's been put out, what it means. And so you guys have had some great questions. So we want to make sure we get those answered so that you can also educate your sphere of influence as well. We have to be aware of what's going on. Because the press, there's going to be one narrative, but you got to break that narrative down and fact check it and make sure that it's the right message. It took me a while to tie that back in 2011. I was like, what happened in Texas 2000? Oh, I remember now, because the whole world was watching. It was a debacle. That Super Bowl was a debacle. And the reason why I know is because my team was playing it. Pittsburgh was playing Green Bay, and we lost that Super Bowl. But the news of the weather overshadowed the Super Bowl because people couldn't even get it.
Yeah, you may as well been playing in Green Bay, Wisconsin,
right?
Or Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania,
right? Because it was that bad. It probably would have been better in either one of those two places because they know how to handle it.
They would have been more equipped to handle the weather.
Yeah, I remember because people, it was grossly mishandled. The infrastructure was not there. Yeah, there was problems. I remember. Charles, thank you. Thank you for breaking this down in a way that makes sense. I think, my charge to you is, what can everybody do? What can individuals do to get more informed of what's going on locally, what's going on in their state, without being overwhelmed? Because it's a lot of information. It can be overwhelming. So what are some things that ordinary person can do to stay informed and know when to take action, but also not be overwhelmed?
Start with your local city council meeting. And in Texas, I'm pretty sure a lot of those cities are large enough that you can actually stay at home, especially during the pandemic, and watch those on the local access channel. Get your knowledge base up, and then the time that you spend on social media, challenge some of your friends on social media to see what their knowledge base is on those issues. And that'll let you know right there more involvement is needed, because there are decisions being made about which streets are being paved, how your tax money is being spent, which schools get more money than others,
right.
And all of that. So here's my ultimate thought on it is, we always talk about everybody should vote because our ancestors bled and died for us to vote. But if voting is all you're going to do, then you missed out on what the other parts of why our ancestors fought so hard for us to have that vote, because they wanted a voice. They wanted to be able to decide their own fates. And they knew getting to the ballot box would assist in that. But they didn't stop there. They still talked in the church. They talked in the Masonic hall. They talked in the living room. They talked in the barbershop. They talked in the field. They talked in the classroom. And they knew those issues. Where we have gotten desensitized is because we have so much information at our fingertips at any given second. If you have an Apple or Android, you have a computer in your hand. The information is there, but what it causes you to do is to focus on the low-hanging fruit. We spend all our time on Facebook. Let's add in one component. I'm not ragging on the time that you spend on Facebook. I'm saying add something to it. While you have that voice to talk about whatever you've been talking about, add one thing to it. And there's one new policy thing that you found out from watching a city council meeting or a school board meeting. So that way that you can start using your sphere of influence on Facebook to actually push the needle on that. I don't necessarily agree with that, Tracy. I don't think internet has made us lazy. I think what the internet has done is refocus us on things that we used to do in person. It's refocused. We're doing much more with the information. But as you know, Tracy, at Columbia High, it was a tradition for us to sit on the stoop and play the dozens every morning before class.
Yep.
That was our social media because we were pre-internet babies.
Yep. And that's when you caught up on all the latest news.
Yes.
What was happening? Yep.
Yeah. So it's just gone inside from sitting on the stoop to now we sit on Facebook. We're still connected to each other. Well, all I'm saying is use that connection to spread love on these policy issues, because I guarantee you the world is watching, and more so than the world, your winter coat is watching, because I bet you had that coat on, some long johns, hats, and all that good stuff.
Man, everything you can find, bro.
Right.
Look, it was, everything, and I do mean everything. Grandma's quilt, everything you could get. And I think you brought up an interesting point there. I think that have discussions, right? We can have a party for everything else, but we can have some healthy discussions, when we get back to having gatherings. But we can have discussions online. We can get together virtually and talk about important things. But somebody has to be the catalyst for that. So be the catalyst for that. I mean, we do it, Charles. I mean, we have discussions, and here's what I know. I know I can learn something from every conversation, but I can learn nothing from the conversations I don't choose to have.
And that's all I'm saying, listen. We have conversations all the time with strangers and friends alike using social media. So we obviously know how to use it, right?
Right.
Add in a wrinkle to talk about something that challenges your comfort zone.
Look, guys, we have broken it down. We have given you some action steps to take so that for the next crisis, you should be informed. We should be able to do things to prevent them. And here's the other thing I'm going to say. Look, get involved locally. Get down there, see what's going on, and voice your opinion and voice your guidance. Decisions can't be made in the darkness if there's light in the room. If there's no light in the room, it's going to be made in the darkness. You are the light. So turn the light on.
But here's what I would say to that. I challenge you on that. I'm challenging everything today because I'm cold and I don't even like winter. I like summertime. It's bright and it's cheery. It's got colors. Wintertime with this type of cold has only got one color, and that's white.
Yeah, you don't like cold. You never have.
No. But here's the thing. Those decisions are not necessarily being made in the dark. They have conned us into thinking that there's nothing to see here. And they didn't have to do that much of a sell on that. They just make the meetings extra boring. I've been in those rooms. They make the meetings boring until everybody leaves, and then the good stuff comes up.
So there it is. So here's what I say, Charles. But if you stay there, light is still in the room. It only can be dark if you exit the room and take the light out. Now you chose to leave, so you took the light out, and that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
You know, what was our great Miss Cook taught us civics, 8th grade. Great job. I still remember all the things she taught me. Look,
I don't remember that. I remember Miss Chain.
Oh, I hadn't even got to Miss Chain yet, but I remember Miss Cook too. And she would always challenge us and say, history happened. Whether you choose to learn it and understand it and use it to move forward in a better way, that's a decision you have to make, but history still happened.
Well, in that case, you have history that you didn't learn because 2011 is not that long ago.
True. Didn't learn it. And I think I'm just optimistic that I think Texas has learned, and I think we will be pushing the envelope a lot differently in terms of the voters of Texas here in the next cycle. And I think we'll be much more engaged, and I think we'll have a much more sharpened ear when it comes to climate control and hearing anything about energy. I really believe that. Well, Charles, we're out of time for the day. You want to take us out?
Stay safe, everyone. Still need to wear a mask no matter how cold it is. And hopefully the water situation will get better for those of us in Jackson, and power issues will get better. You know, Mississippi is a humid place, and so even when you have situations like this, we normally generate more ice than snow. And so be careful with the black ice on the roads, and be patient as possible. But also, I want y'all to keep this in mind when elections come around, because nobody should be cold. That'd be a good campaign slogan.
I agree. Until next Friday, we'll see you then.
All right.